Season 2, Episode 2. Welcome back.
Hello.
Cello.
Cello.
Wordy episode.
Yeah. This
Wow.
one was definitely wordy.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
But every time there's a wordy episode, that means all that stuff they were talking about is about to happen in the next episode or two. So
Yeah, it's nice how you have like the setup episode and then you have the action episode. At least right now.
For
And then
sure.
eventually it all becomes awesome. Yeah, this is the Nightlands.
pardon me.
Is a title that I don't really like.
Good gravy. Pardon me. Had a little granola bar action come back up there. We're good. Let's get right into it. On that note.
On Daniel's
Blah.
burp / sort of choke.
Whatever.
Yeah, so the Nightlands.
The Nightlands.
So it starts with Arya. She's
Peeing.
down by the river
In
peeing.
secret.
Yeah. She walks back over to the camp. She picks up her bundle of sticks that she obviously dropped so she could go pee. And she walks past the locked cart that has the 3 dudes in it that, of course, we know is
Yuckin'.
yuckin'. As she walks past, he calls out to her and... or one of them calls out to her, and Jaqen says a boy could make a friend. He says a few things. A man is, and then he says a boy can make a friend.
We're introduced to his weird way of talking.
Yep.
For the first time.
Yeah. And he says, you're called Ari, and he says
Ari.
he says a man is called Yakin Zar. Oh my god, I can't even say it.
Yuckin'.
Yakin.
Jaqen.
Yeah,
Or is it
Jaqen.
is it supposed to be
No,
like
it's Jaqen.
jalapeno, or
Yeah,
is it supposed to be like Jack?
No, it's supposed to be like Jacques.
Like in the
Jacques
kind of in the
and
middle.
Havar. Yeah. Yeah. I think is how you're I mean, that's how I've always taken it. And,
Jaqen.
Jaqen.
Okay.
So the other guy in the cart yells and says, "Bring us beer," and he is kind of harassing Arya, and she starts hitting him with a stick.
Mm-hmm.
And Yakin, he says, "A boy has more courage than sense," which is very funny. I like. Yeah, again, it's like your weird way of talking is kind of fun.
It is fun.
Yeah. That's when the gold cloaks show up. Arya starts to hide because she says she thinks they're looking for her.
Yeah.
She tells Gendry this. He's like, all right. The gold cloaks speak to Euron, who of course is
badass.
Yeah. Yeah. They have a royal warrant. He's like, I don't care. They're the Night's Watch.
Yeah, it's like nothing is nothing among nothing is more important than what's beyond that wall and keeping that shit on that side of it. So it's like, nope. These guys all get a free pass.
Yeah.
Because this is where you go when you go to jail. If you're not dying.
Yeah.
Well, not jail, but
Well,
I
it's
guess,
the alternative. It's
the alternative.
You're free. You are paying for your sins
But
by being
you're cutting
enslaved,
potatoes.
sort of, to the in essence. It's like you're being forced into the army.
Yeah.
If America forced you into an army, that would be like what it would be for us. If we took our prisoners and put them and was like, all right, well, you're going to serve the country forever.
Have at it.
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Who cares? And the gold cloaks say, well, who cares what they're supposed to be? I've got a
This is from the king, bitch.
yeah, I've got a warrant. And that's when the gold cloak pulls a sword, but Euron's faster.
Yeah, he gets the sword 8 inches out.
Yeah. And
Euron's like, yoink, and
Yeah, he's
has
got,
a knife in his crotch in a split second.
yeah, and Euron says to him, he says, people worry so much about their throats, they forget about what's below.
Yeah.
And he says that he could shave his ass with it.
He says that he just sharpened the blade before breakfast. He could shave a spider's ass with this thing.
Yeah. And he says, or he could nick an artery in his leg, and once that happens,
There's no man here that can unnick it.
Yeah. And so he says that he's going to take his sword.
All the while pushing his knife up against this dude's crotch.
Yeah. And so he's like, I'm going to take your sword. Good steel is always needed on the wall. And he says, you have a choice. You can die here, or you can go back to your people and tell them you didn't find what you were looking for. And that's when the guy just sits there for a second, and then he's like, he just yells in general.
Because he can't stand the fact that he just got bested, so he's like, gotta get his little last word in there, which means dick.
Yeah, so he said he's looking for Gendry, and that anyone who provides information will have a reward.
some sort of reward.
And so clearly, it ends. The scene ends with everyone looking at Gentry.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I'd be like, all right, well, I hope I can.
Well, that dude's like, okay, well, I'm gonna come back with a bunch more dudes.
Yeah,
and
he
I'm
says,
gonna cut your head off.
Yeah, which we all know not gonna happen.
Empty threat, and his bitch ass is going back to King's Landing with no sword.
So we cut to Tyrion. He's just walking through a few rooms, whistling. He walks into his quarters. Shay's inside. As the door opens, you can hear her laughing. She's clearly in there talking to somebody, and you see Varys. And
immediately, because Tyrion's not an idiot, is like, son of a bitch.
Yeah, exactly. So Shay's like, I met your friend, and then they start talking about Tyrion's bravery in battle, and Varys says, I heard you suffered such a terrible head wound. And he says, well, your friend has been telling me how you met. And, of course, Tyrion's like,
yeah,
what did she say? And then Varys confirms, oh, it's so interesting that you found this woman cooking for your working in the kitchens.
Oh, this is your kitchen chick.
Yeah.
Huh?
And so he says, so Tyrion says, you should taste her fish pie. And Shay's like, I don't think he's a man who likes fish.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Varys says, friends are such an important part of life. It's unfortunate that your father didn't want her to come. Rest easy, though. I'm very good at keeping secrets from my good friends. And Tyrion's like, I know what that means. That's a threat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Varys says, I'm sorry to go on and on. I'll let you rest. I'll take my leave. And before he does, though, him and Tyrion, because they have a council meeting, so they're walking to the door. And before Varys can open the door, Tyrion puts his hand on it, which is a very fun, move where it's like, oh, look at, he's like, no, I got this. And it's like, well, Varys could, just yank that door, but whatever. He just doesn't.
Yeah, but it's not like he's a manly dude either.
Well, I know, but that's why I was just going to say, when Varys does it, both of them touch the door so lightly, it's like, either one of you could just rip this door open on either.
Just don't open it.
Yeah. So it's clear, though, they have a softer game that they play, because they are, like you said,
smarter.
they're not those guys. They're not brute.
Well, they're smarter.
Exactly. So, Tyrion says, I don't like threats. I'm not Ned Stark. And
I know how this shit is played.
Yeah, he says, I understand the way the game is played. Threaten me again and I'll have you thrown into the sea. And Varys says that you might not like the outcome. And he says, what happens in the sea is that the big fish eat the little fish and I keep on paddling. And that's when they both leave to go to the council meeting, because he says, well, we don't want to keep Cersei waiting.
Yeah.
You know.
So he got the last word.
Yeah. So Cersei, we cut to Cersei. She's reading Robb's letter. She immediately rips it up upon finishing it.
Because that's her thing.
Yeah. Tyrion says you perfected the art of tearing up papers.
Because she's like a fucking child.
Yeah, she really is. It's like when she gets something that makes her angry, ripping it up is her way of being like, it didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. So they talk about Jaime to the cousin who has brought the terms. Has brought Robb's terms, and Cersei asks. She says, "Have you seen Jaime?" And the cousin responds with, "His spirit hasn't been broken." And so Cersei
still
says,
pretty, just dirty.
Yeah, just a little dirty. So Cersei says, "If you speak to him, tell him he has not been forgotten."
Oh, she's yearning for that thing.
And you can see like everyone at the table when she mentions Jaime, because she mentions Jaime.
Yeah.
Everyone at the table kind of glances at
everyone else.
Yeah, it was. I can't remember who. I think it's Varys who has like a very interesting look.
That would make sense.
So she goes to adjourn the meeting, but then the Maester says, "Well, Raven actually came from Castle Black that we need to address," and so they open the letter, and it's Varys is saying, "Oh, is it troubling with the wildlings?" And somebody's like, well, that's why they're called wildlings. You know? Yeah. And they said, well, actually, they've stopped warring against.
Said that.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
I couldn't remember. It's a wordy episode, so sometimes I forget to note who said it.
He's always putting a little smart ass comment.
Oh, yeah. Well, I tried to note who says what, but sometimes it gets Anyway, so he says they're not warring with each other anymore. They're actually joining together behind this king beyond the wall. And Cersei goes, another king? How many is that now?
Like 5.
Yeah. Janos Slynt, the Lord Commander of the... sorry. No. Jumping ahead. Lord Commander Mormont has asked for more men to be sent to the wall. The quote on the paper is cold winds are rising and the dead the dead rises with them.
Yeah.
And the Maester says, well, the Northerners are just superstitious. They always have been.
Always having to have a little old guy snarky fucking comment to make.
Yeah. Is it Cersei who asks how to kill a dead man?
Yeah. Yeah, I believe so. Because also making a smart ass comment.
Yeah, and so Tyrion says, well, apparently you burned them.
Yeah, burn them, apparently.
Cersei says she kind of laughs at Tyrion, and she's like, you one trip to the wall, and you believe in grumpkins and snarks, which is the terms he used when he talked to Jon about the wall.
Grumpkins and snarks and wiggle munches and grumpuses.
Yeah, the grumpus. And so Tyrion says, well, I'm not sure what I believe in that sense, but the fact that I know is that the Night's Watch is the only thing separating us from what's beyond the wall.
And he also says that Lord Mormont doesn't lie.
Yeah. And Cersei says, well, she expects the Night's Watch to do their job and defend them.
I'm sure those noble men will do their jobs.
Mm-hmm. So clearly no men are going to the wall.
And then we shoot straight to the men of the Night's Watch talking about dead people farting.
Yes. Yes, the very serious conversation of the fact that you fart when you die.
Which is almost like obvious, having her say something like that they're going to shoot to people in the Night's Watch like bumbling around or like talking about something ridiculous.
They always do. They always try to do like a really funny like cut scene if it's something like that. Yeah. There's another time when they try to interject a humorous thing like that, and I can't remember what it was, but I remember being like, no, don't do that. Oh, there's the Maester farts.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
Yikes.
I can't remember the situation, but I'm pretty sure that there's a Maester that does that.
That's as bad as having Ed Sheridan or Sheridan or what's that fucking guy's name?
Sharon? I don't know. Sharon?
Ed
Sheridan?
Sheridan?
I always said Sheridan, but I don't think there's a D in it.
Boo.
Anyway, yeah.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, again, I was like, no. Same thing if Conor McGregor. I mean, I love Conor, but I'm glad that he was like, no, you can't. No, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, that would have been ultimately fucking cheesy.
Unless you just couldn't tell it was him, but...
Yeah, but then would have been worthless.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then there's no draw. Hey, everybody watch this shit. Conor McGregor's going to be on it, and you can't fucking see him. It's sick.
Like the when Brad Pitt is visible for a second in
Deadpool 2.
Deadpool 2, yeah. Anyway, back to the...
GOT.
The fart when you die conversation. This is why we're avoiding it.
Dead people.
So they have that conversation, which I'm not going to go into. And then Sam... 2 girls walk by, and Sam's like, it's a bit greedy for one man to have so many wives. He's like, I mean, I could see 1 or 2, but like
2 or 3 would work.
So then he talks about how much he likes to watch a woman walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
agree, that's my man's there.
And then Grin says, well, it's nice when they come towards you too.
I'm more of the walking away type, but yeah, I can appreciate it all.
So Grin says that there was a girl that he used to wrestle with when he was younger that lived in the on the farm or I think it was like a few farms over or something. And so he said that when they got older, and he kind of snickers, and he's like, the wrestling changed a bit. Yeah. And then Sam, as virgins do, is like, you've been with her? How many times? Like, you clearly count it, right?
Yeah. Not everyone counts Eric Foreman.
Yeah, exactly. You count? And Ross. You
count it? And Ross.
You're such a loser. A loser, you did it. Anyway. So... Grin's response is, well, as many times as I could, obviously.
No shit.
So then they send Sam, they say, hey, go get some more turnips and potatoes. We need some more. We're running out. So he walks over to like the shed thing, and as he's like getting in it, he hears a scream. Of course, it's a woman. Yeah. He turns around, and Ghost, who is huge now.
Huge.
Yeah. Clearly the
size of a fucking pony.
Yeah, seriously. Either that or Gilly's just like 4'2". I don't know. But so Ghost is like, he's not really doing anything. He's just
he
like,
looks excited. He looks.
she has a rabbit in her hand.
Well, she has 2, I think.
Oh, does she?
And
I missed the one.
He's got that look where he is like right in her face, but it's not threatening. He's got that look to where like you have a stick and he wants you to throw that thing so fucking bad.
Yeah.
Like,
He doesn't look threatening. He looks like he's playing.
And
but
also, it's awesome that you have a like 5 foot tall wolf walking around, and it's a wild animal, but because it's like majestic and it's John's, it's everyone, it can kind of just casually walk around. Everybody's like, oh yeah, that's the giant wolf. That's John's wolf.
Yeah. Because it's not gonna. I mean, at this point, everyone realizes that Ghost isn't gonna do anything unless you provoke John.
Well, also he's like incredibly smart.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, dire wolves are obviously
intelligent,
a mysterious being, but they're clearly intelligent.
Yeah.
All of them are. So.
I fucks with Ghost.
Except for Lady, because she was a dog.
Yeah. Which one looks like an adorable cartoon dog?
You've said that before. I'm pretty sure.
I think
it's
it was
Summer.
Arya's.
Oh yeah, because she has to throw rock.
Which one was hers? Lemuria.
Nymeria.
No,
Nymeria.
with an N.
N-Y.
Okay.
Nymeria.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it was that one.
Yeah.
When it was kind of like.
Because Grey
little
Wind's
bit grown
just
up.
like whatever.
Yeah, but hers had the most precious face.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely precious. I mean, precious.
Precious.
It definitely has to be her. Because Summer is, I mean, just wolf-like. We see Summer a little bit more.
I'll have to go back.
Yeah.
Anywho.
Definitely. It's definitely hers.
Back on it.
Back on it. So that happens. Sam shoos Ghost away. Ghost finally is like, all right.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well,
just
hold on.
goes.
I'm not eating these rabbits.
Yeah.
This is okay.
All right.
Just making sure.
All right.
You're not gonna. I can't eat it, and you're not gonna throw one.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Well,
That's all the information
moving
I
on.
needed.
So Sam walks up to the girl, which of course we know is Gilly, and he like kind of like goes to reach for her to see if she's okay, and she's like, "You shouldn't touch me," and he's like, "Oh yeah, that you're right." And
Forgot
he's
about
like,
that.
He's like, "Sorry, just wanted to make sure you weren't hurt." And Gilly says, she just sits there for a minute, and then she's like, "You're very brave," and which is
sure.
Yeah, I mean, well, she clearly, yeah, she's not seen anything.
And that's
in
why he
life.
wants to keep her around. It's like, this is the only
This is
person, much less girl, that
Yeah.
thinks I'm awesome.
yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna hold on to this.
Yeah. So we cut to John. He's sharpening Longclaw, and we see Sam walk up
With her.
with Gilly, and John looks up and he goes, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, like what the fuck? This
Yeah.
is the one rule.
Yeah, and
the
Sam
one
goes,
rule.
"This is Gilly," and he's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Yeah. And Sam says, and so Gilly says, "Well, Sam says you can help," and John's like, "What?" And that's when Sam goes, "She's pregnant." And
beautiful. Thank you, Sam.
yeah, and then he goes, "We have to take her with us when we leave." And John's like, "What? How would we do that? Why would we do that?"
This is getting worse and worse. I thought you were smart, Sam.
Yeah, no, not at all. And so that's when Gilly says, "I'm going to have a baby, and if it's a boy," and she stops. And John's like, "If it's a boy, what?" And she doesn't say anything. And he's like, you're asking us to risk our lives for you, but you won't even tell us why?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then she just gets this dumb-ass look on her face
Yeah.
and walks away.
Yeah. And so then Sam says, "Why did you do that?" And John says, "Are you in such a hurry to lose your hand?" And Sam's like, "No, why were you mean, like cruel?" And John's like, "You can't."
You just can't.
Yeah. And Sam's like, "Well, I wasn't trying to steal her. She's a person, not a goat." And John's like, "Yeah, but that's not the rule here."
Did we say that he wanted to bring her?
Yeah.
We did. Okay. I'm trying to take her. Yeah, we did. Sorry.
We have to take her with
Yeah,
us
yeah.
when we leave. Yeah.
Yeah, you're an idiot.
Yeah. You're an idiot.
You're an idiot.
And John says that, one, they're going deeper in the wilderness. Two, Lord Commander Mormont's not going to let that happen.
Not so much.
Yeah, and also Craster's not going to let that happen. So, like, you know, it's not like suddenly one of his wives and daughter is going to go missing, and he's going to be like,
Cool.
I forgot about
Guess
that
I
one.
miscounted.
Yeah. Like Kevin McAllister.
I was about to make a Home Alone reference, but I couldn't think of one, so I was like, I'll just let it ride.
That's what happens to all the kids. They're
Everyone-
left home alone. All the
Everyone
boys.
accounted for.
Sam says that, and then John says, well, and also, even if we did take her, because for some reason Lord Mormont was okay with it, who's going to deliver this baby?
Exactly.
And Sam's like, I've read a book on it. I could try. And it's like,
And we're getting deeper into the most dangerous place ever.
yeah. So John's like, no.
So yeah, we should definitely have this
Yeah.
just dead weight with us for zero reason.
Yeah. Yeah. So John's like, no, sorry, not going to do that. So we cut to the red waste. It's a kind of scan through everyone. Everyone's sitting and not talking and clearly suffering from lack of water and food.
For sure.
And it pans over and we finally see Jorah. He takes a sip of water and then he hears a horse riding up. And once
You can see it like in the distance.
And there's no rider. And as it gets closer, Jorah realizes there's blood dripping from the bag. And so he walks over to it and you can see hair hanging out of it. So he picks it up. Obviously it's a head. The braid of the hair has been cut off. The tiny braid that there was. It's the nice,
cute one.
Yeah, the nice
Cute one.
That Dany comes over and she's like, of course Jorah's like, you shouldn't see this. And she's like, he's the blood of my blood. I have to look at it. And so she's like, who do you think did this? And he names a bunch of khals. And he's like, the point is that they don't like the idea of a woman leading a khalasar.
And she's like, well,
yeah,
they're going to like it a lot less.
Yeah. And that's when one of the Dothraki girls, I think it's that guy's sister.
Like sister or something.
Yeah. She comes up, sees what obviously
and
is in the bag.
Bummed because they killed him like an animal, like chopped his head off.
Yeah,
and, like, in order to
didn't burn his body.
Yeah.
She was like, I know they didn't.
Which means he can't get to like the
Nightlands.
The Nightlands.
He can't join his ancestors to ride forever in the Nightlands. Yeah. So she's of course like hysterical, and Dany's like, I promise you he'll ride with his ancestors tonight.
And then she's like, we're gonna build a little fire pit thing. We'll build a mini one
for his head,
like when Pam builds the casket for the bird. So we'll build a little one. We'll just put his head in it, and maybe his head can just go hang out with his ancestors.
Yeah. Luckily, Dwight's not there trying to stuff it into a soda can.
Yeah.
This is about the right size.
What are you doing? Yeah. He'll just be a head like on Futurama.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So he'll just like, what? Khal Drogo can just put him in the bag
for sure
on his horse.
There you go.
And then he'll ride with him. So then it cuts to Theon. He's riding on a ship up top, sees the Iron Islands as they approach it. He walks downstairs and starts undressing. There's a naked girl in the bed.
She keeps saying her father. Is that just the captain of that
boat, the ship?
It's not supposed to be a
no,
particular
not anyone
person?
particular.
Okay.
It seems like Theon. Well, it's like Theon just caught a ship that was going past the Iron Islands.
Got it.
So he's she asks him if it looks the way he remembers. He says it's
looks smaller,
and she says, well, everything looks bigger when you're a child. She said that the room that they were in, she was like, I used to think that, or the boat, I used to think it was a palace, and now look at it. And so Theon, he's like, well, anyone who matters will be waiting for me on the docks. He's just talking up how he's
like he's gonna have this grand homecoming. And no one gives a shit.
Yeah, and he's like, they haven't had much to be excited about since I left, like that kind of stuff.
Exactly. It's like where do you think you're going?
Yeah, exactly.
You're always talking about how hard this place is, but you think you're gonna be showing up to a bunch of sweeties.
Yeah, exactly. Like who's gonna like throw flowers for
with
your
a big
return?
Sign, it is your birthday.
It is your birthday. You have arrived home. So Theon, the girl, she keeps talking and she's like smiling and just like he's like, you should try to smile with your lips closed, because she's just not like clearly the best looker. Yeah, she's
born on a ship.
Yeah,
hangs out on a ship, lives on a ship.
So she says that her father says that she shouldn't. That he always says you shouldn't trust the Iron Islanders. That they're only ravers and reapers. That was hard to say.
Got it.
Theon says no, you shouldn't, and he was like, "We're not meant for like the breeding life. That's why we take salt wives instead of like actual wives."
Which means what?
They have girls that they fuck in different ports, typically.
So that's assault.
Assault wife is a wife that you
salt wife, y'all. Salt wife. Hey.
It's a woman who you have that you leave and you have no legal.
But are you beating it up every time you're in that port?
Pretty much, yeah.
So that's like your jam.
That's the thing, yeah.
It's not like, oh well, yeah, I'm here, but there's also this other chick. But it's like, oh, I'm coming home to this port.
This port, like I have a place to be
with Bethany.
Yeah, Bethany.
But
Bethany is definitely in Westeros.
That is a GOT name.
Bethany, yep.
Bethany, Harriet, Ruth, all these ports, just beating them all.
There's probably a Jessica there.
Mm-hmm. Helen.
Helen.
And a voodoo woman named Phyllis.
Who's?
That's my name, Bobby.
Who's Helen? So that's when he says, well, I'm your place is on the ship. And she's like, well, not after you leave. My father is like, he's going to hate me after this. He's going to call me a whore.
And she's like looking happy about it. Like she's like smiling the whole time.
Well, she's smiling because she's trying to convince him to take her.
Yeah.
And Theon's like, I haven't paid you. And he flips her over, and that's when it's like you can see her being like,
oh,
fuck.
I see.
Yeah. So, So, and Theon.
Such
terrible
garbage in the sack,
I would
dude.
hate to have sex
garbage
with him. Terrible rhythm.
in the sack.
Terrible. Take a lap.
It's like
a huge lap.
It's like he takes a pump and then he goes and makes a sandwich.
Yeah.
And then he comes back and he pumps you again. And then he goes and mows the lawn.
And he doesn't
and then he comes back.
Yeah. And there's no like oh, let me just like, it's not even like me pump it and then like hold for a second.
Hold.
It's just like he's just like putting his dick as far into her as possible for as short of a time as possible.
It is the 8-year-old's idea of like cartoon sex.
Exactly.
You sure are pumping her there, Theon.
Yeah. So we cut from that terrible sex to a girl with a nice ass riding a dude in a horror house at Littlefinger's.
Yeah, we shoot to we go from the garbage sex to the pretty hot sex.
Pretty hot sex. Whorehouse, Littlefinger's whorehouse. Someone's looking through like a peephole.
While getting blown.
A
lot going on here. A lot of moving parts.
There's a peephole within a peephole. There's someone watching that. That sounded a little sexual. There is someone watching someone through a peephole, watching someone through a peephole. It's meta.
Watching me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Takes a whole new meaning to that.
For sure. And Littlefinger's there watching.
Yeah. So this guy is watching some guy getting ridden while he gets a blowjob, and Littlefinger is watching the guy getting blown, watching the guy getting ridden. That's about as good as I can put that. So
we got it.
Yeah. So that's when a door slams, and there's some voices, and there's a girl crying. So Littlefinger goes to investigate. He sees a guy coming out of a room, and once he sees Littlefinger, the guy says, "I'm not going to stand for this." And he's like,
"You're twice as much as the other spots."
Yeah, and he's like, and what I get is this girl crying. And so Littlefinger's like, hang on. And another girl is coming out, and she's got cum on the side of her mouth. And Littlefinger stops her, wipes the cum off, and then is like, here, she'll help you.
Here you go.
And she immediately kisses the guy.
And the dude just goes full in.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Have some
cum
shaft mouth.
Yeah, I'm sure that knowing it's not yours.
Yikes.
Yeah. So Littlefinger.
Her mouth had to have smelled like and tasted like sex.
It had to. Well, also you're in a whorehouse, so what are you really
asking for? I guess
for?
the whole place kind of has probably a cummy kind of smell to it.
It's like when you get those cum trees and you're like, okay, did someone just massively shoot loads everywhere, or is there a cum tree somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Littlefinger walks into the room to investigate who's crying. I put the crying whore. It's Rosalind. And she says she's sorry. Littlefinger asks if the guy heard her, and she said no, it's Megan. And he's like, who? And she's like, she works for you.
She works for you?
You know, the one whose baby was just stabbed,
murdered to death.
Yeah. And so Littlefinger says, well, yeah, that was poorly handled. Sometimes those with the most power have the least grace. And Rosalind says that she just can't stop thinking about it. And that's when Littlefinger says, you remind me of another girl, beautiful and intelligent like yourself. She wasn't happy. She cried often. And she wouldn't tell him why. And he said that she was a girl from, I think he says she's from Lies. And so he said that they're expensive, extremely expensive. And so he says, and this one wasn't making him any money. And Littlefinger hates bad investments because they haunt him. And he said he had no idea how to make this girl happy and no idea how to mitigate his losses. And then he had a patron pay him a very large sum of money to take this girl and transform her into something that most men wouldn't even dream of. And he said, I wouldn't say he was successful in making her happy, but he definitely mitigated my losses. And Rosalind's like,
yikes.
Point taken.
I got it.
Mm-hmm. So then he says, take the night off to mourn. I'll see you tomorrow and you'll be happy. And she just nods happy. And he says, good, that makes me happy. And then he walks away. And she's just like, she sits there until he leaves. And then she kind of quietly breaks down.
Such a slick little asshole he is.
Yeah. He says it in a much more convincing, sweet, calm, and then terrifying way than I did.
For sure.
So we cut to Tyrion and Janos Slynt. They're sitting at a table. Pod is pouring a cup of wine. He overfills it because, of course.
Because he's not a teenager?
Yeah.
I don't understand. But yeah, go ahead. Should get you a proper lad.
Yeah, well, I think he just, yeah.
He's terrible at pouring.
Yeah, Pod's just a nervous wreck. Also,
I guess he is just nervous, or maybe his giant dick's getting in the way.
Okay, so on Reddit, a little side note, Reddit's like one of the biggest things. They're like, okay, Game of Thrones season 8, please let us know what Pod actually did with those girls, the whores that they bring him.
Yeah,
they want to know they want to know. Reddit wants to know details. The second thing is apparently the actor Pod kind of looks like Jon Snow now. So everyone on Reddit keeps talking about, like, they keep putting him in pictures where Jon was. So it's pretty funny to see everyone being like, damn, Pod got really hot. And now we really want to know what he did with those whores.
Yeah. We want to see him swing that heat.
Yeah.
Pull it out like at the end of Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
Just at the very end, all the dragons are dead. It's just Pod standing there. He's like, I'm a big, bright star.
Yeah.
And pull that heat out.
I'm a big, bright star, and I got a bigger dick than Hodor.
For shizzle.
Yeah,
I don't know. Him and Hodor could probably scrap it.
I don't know.
They could go at it.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. Is the Boogie Nights fake dick as big as the Party Down fake dick?
Party Down fake dick is definitely girthier.
Okay, all right.
But I would say lengthwise,
Boogie Nights
might have him by an inch.
Okay, cool.
All big dicks.
That's what she said.
All right, back to GOT.
Hey, there's a lot of dicks in GOT. So
That's
anyway,
enough of that dick talk right now.
Yeah. So Pod walks away. Tyrion asks if Lord Janos likes the wine. He says, yeah, it's a Dornish red, right? Red. And Tyrion says, oh, you know your wine. And they talk about the cook who made the dinner, and Janos says, well, I might have to hire him for myself. And Tyrion said, well, wars have been started for less. And then he brings up the killing of the baby at the whorehouse.
And he was like, necessary.
Yeah, and he said nasty business, but it had to be done. And he said to keep the peace. And Tyrion goes, I didn't realize that peace depended on killing babies.
Yeah. And
that's when Janos said that, he has people at court. He had his orders. And so Tyrion says, well,
we said something to him, and he's like, are you drunk? And he's like, can't believe that he's saying this shit to him, or bringing it up, accusing him. So then he says, well, I couldn't imagine that it was the Queen's orders. And that's when Janos says, well, I never said that they were the Queen's orders. And so Tyrion says, well, who else could they be? And that's when Janos says, well, I don't want to listen to this filth. And he starts getting more angry. Huffy.
And huffy. And says, and Tyrion says, I think some people do believe the rumors about Jaime and Cersei, and those people would think that Robert's bastards have a better claim to the throne than Joffrey. So
for sure.
It obviously has to be one of those people. And so then Tyrion says, well, let me ask you another question. When your men killed Ned in the throne room, did you give the order? And Janos is like, yes, he tried to buy me. And he says, I did and would again. He tried to buy me.
Yeah, that traitor tried to buy me.
And Tyrion said, oh, but...
Little did he know you were already bought.
Yeah. And so then...
That's when he gets pissed.
Yeah.
And that's when he asks if he's drunk.
Yeah. And so then...
he's like, you can't fucking talk to me like that.
Yeah, and then he calls him a dwarf. He calls him an imp, and then he calls him dwarf. And Tyrion says, you should have stopped at imp.
Yeah.
And so he says... Tyrion says, seeing as how you betrayed the last hand of the king, I'm not really comfortable with having you at court. And Janos says, that doesn't really matter. I work for Joffrey. And he's not going to stand for it. And Tyrion's like, well, Joffrey doesn't have to know anything.
For shizzle. Yeah. You're out of here,
and
bitch.
And then he says, there's a ship leaving for Eastwatch by the sea. And then it's a long walk to Castle Black. And
now he knows what's happening.
Yeah, and so he says, I hope you enjoy the wall. I found it beautiful in a harsh and terrible kind of way.
Terribly uncomfortable sort of way.
Yeah. And so...
Pardon me, I keep coughing.
And that's when the Lord came... That's when Janos starts demanding the gold cloaks to capture Bronn, who Tyrion's like, my man will help you. And he's like, capture this man. And they don't do anything.
Yeah.
And Tyrion's like, oh, well...
They only listen to the
Lord Commander, who is
Bronn.
And so
Bronn is just getting this news and is just like, get him.
Yeah. So then, he's like,
grab
him, boys.
Okay.
So that's when Janos says, I have powerful friends at court, and Tyrion is like, bye.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yep. And so they drag him out. Tyrion pours a cup, and he cheers Bronn to his new position. And then he asks him, he said, if I tell you to murder an infant still at her mother's breast, would you do it without question? And Bronn says, without question? No.
No.
I'd ask how much.
Exactly.
And that's why he's the man.
That's Bronn.
As Bronn. So we got to Gendry, some of the other boys in Arya, they're gathering, Gendry's gathering water, but the other are cleaning and doing like chores in the river. And they, one of the boy with the blonde hair says, if the gold cloaks come back, they should yield. And they start talking about wars and battles and stuff. And Hot Pie is like, well, I've seen a battle. And they're like, no, you haven't. He's like, well, I've seen two men fighting in armor. And they're like, well, that's not a battle.
It's not a battle.
Yeah. And so he said, well, they had armor on, so it's a battle. And so he was like, and so Arya's like, that's not a battle. And he's like, well, how would you know anyway? And so she was like, well, ask Gendry. He was an armorer's apprentice. And so that's when Gendry's brought into it. And so he's like, Hot Pie says,
how do you know they were knights?
Yeah.
They had armor.
Well, Hot Pie says, is a battle between two guys with armor, or if two guys are fighting with armor on, is it a battle? And Gendry says, who told you that? And Hot Pie says, a knight.
A knight.
And he says, how did you know he was a knight? And he says he had armor on. And Gendry says, any idiot could buy armor. And that's when Hot Pie goes, how do you know that? And Gendry goes, because I sold armor.
Because I sold armor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Touche.
So it just, a very fun exchange there where Hot Pie's like, he just believes this guy because he has armor on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And because he's a child.
Yeah, exactly. So Arya, she walks up with Gendry and she says she wants to know why the gold cloaks want Gendry. He says he doesn't know. She says, you're a liar. And he says that no good ever comes from questioning me, so stop it. And then she asks another question, and he says, how is someone so small such a pain in my ass?
Yeah.
And so he said, the last two people who questioned me died. And so she's like, what? And he's like, the two hands, Lord Aaron and then Lord Stark, both came a few weeks before they died and asked me some questions. And so she's like, what did they ask you? And he says, asking questions is bad luck. You'll probably be dead soon. And that's when she says, well, what did they ask about? And he said, just my mom. And she's like, who's your mom? And he's like, I don't know. She worked in a tavern and died when I was young. And she's like, who's your father? And he's like, I don't know.
Beats the shit out of me.
And so he's like, why did you think the gold cloaks are after you? Or why are they after you? And he says, did you kill someone, or is it because you're a girl? And she's like, I'm not a girl. And he's like, I'm not as dumb as everyone else.
Yeah.
I know you're a girl.
You're a girl.
Yeah. So she clearly can't convince him otherwise. So she's like, just don't tell anyone. And he says he won't. And that's when I first watched this, I was like, oh, he's just going to know she's a girl. And then she's just like, no, I'm going to give you all my information. I'm Arya Stark.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she says, I'm Arya Stark. Euron's taking me home to Winterfell. And he says, oh, you're the daughter of the traitor. And she's like, he wasn't a traitor. Joffrey's a liar. And that's when Gendry realizes, oh, that means you're highborn and you're a lady. And she's like, I'm not a lady. My mother's a lady. And he's like, no, you're a lady. You were born in a castle.
He's like,
and
God damn, I've been out here pissing in front of you.
He's like, I said the word cocks. Oh, because he said when she said,
take a piss.
Yeah.
I don't have to piss.
So then he starts calling her Milady and Milady. Matuna. And so she's
really
like,
appreciate your help here, Tuna Turner.
Tuna Turner. She says, don't call her that. So he says it again, and she pushes him over, and they just have a little
moment
with that scene. Yeah. So then we cut to Theon. He's arriving on shore. He steps on land, and no one cares.
No one gives a shit. There's one super old dude there.
Yeah, who's clearly doesn't give a shit.
Doesn't know who he is.
Doesn't know who he is. So he asks Theon what he's brought. And Theon says, I think he says oranges or some type of fruit from the orchard, wine. And then he says, and the only living son of Balon Greyjoy. And this guy just blinks at him. And he goes, me.
Theon. Like, me. Talking about me.
And so then that guy's like, I don't like wine.
I don't like wine.
It's a woman's drink. So Theon says, so we're clearly not getting anywhere with this guy. So Theon says he needs to go to Pike, and the guy doesn't say anything or do anything. And so finally he gives the guy some coin, and the guy walks away and says, I'll find you a horse. That's when a girl, who we know is Yara, walks up behind Theon and says, I'm heading to Pike if you would like to ride with me. They have some witty banter exchange.
Well, he's like, why would you, a random woman, just take me to where I need to go? She's like, well, I know who you are.
Yeah. And he was like, ooh, you do.
Oh, well, of course you do.
And of course his head grew 15 times the size it already is. So, they're riding, and he says, oh yeah, or before he asks, do you know who I am? He says, you don't know what you like. Maybe you need someone to teach you. That was part of their witty banner. He was like, I could teach you. Clearly, like, I could fuck you better than anyone, even though we know that's a lie.
We all know that's a lie.
So
Theon.
so then they ride off, and while they're riding, Theon is like, you should give me the reins. I'm a better rider than you.
And he's groping her.
Yes. And so she asks if he still knows his way around a ship, and if his hands had seen ropes and stuff. And so he says, don't worry about my hands. He starts grabbing her breast, and then he puts his hand down her pants. And he says, you can tell your grandkids about this night. And she says, I can't imagine it's a story fit for children. So then we cut. Theon is in the castle. He walks into the room where his father's sitting in front of the fire. His father does not
give two shits.
Yeah. And so he says, 9 years, they took a frightened boy. What did they give back?
A man.
Your air and blood. And Balon says, well, the Stark had you longer than I did. He stands up and immediately insults him.
Oh, yeah.
For the clothes he's wearing. And he says, that he dress you like a girl. He dresses you like a girl. And so Theon says, if my clothes offend you, I'll change them. And he's like, damn right you will. And then he has this gold chain holding his cloak. And Balon says, did you pay the iron price for the gold around your neck? And Theon doesn't say anything.
Or did you just pay for it?
Yeah. And so he goes, iron or gold? And Theon goes, gold. And that's when Balon pulls it off, and he says, I will not have my son dressed as a whore. My fears have come true that Stark has made you theirs. And Theon's like, well, I have a proposal, and it's not the Starks making. It's mine. I proposed it. And he's like, oh, he trusts you. And he's like, well, he sees
We're
me
like
as
brothers.
And that's when, of course, Balon gets real pissed.
Like, no.
Because, of course,
Not having
Ned
that.
killed all of Theon's
His
other
actual
brothers. Yeah.
brothers.
And so he says, you will not name him brother, not in my hearing. And he says, have you forgotten your own blood? And Theon's like, no, I remember them. I think of them often. And he says, I also remember my father was a king. And that's when Balon takes the proposal and reads it. And he says, I destroy Robb's enemies for him, and he makes me the king of the Iron Islands. And that's when Yara enters. And Theon's like, I told you to wait outside.
Yeah.
And he's like, how did you get past the guards? And she's like, that's not really that hard.
She said it's pretty easy to fool anybody with a dick or something like that.
Yeah. So then she walks up, and Balon puts his arm around him, and that's when Theon's
he realizes that he just groped and kind of
finger, I would assume that at least rubbed on
his sister's downstairs.
Pussy. Yeah. And so he says, well, Yara can't lead the attack. She's a woman. And he's like, that doesn't matter. And he's like, this isn't Winterfell, boy. Yara took over the ships.
She's been here getting hard.
Yeah, she commanded men. She's killed men. She knows who she is. She leads the attack. And that's when Balon, in a Cersei move, burns the letter and is like, no man gives me a crown. I pay the iron price. I will take my crown for that is who I am and who we've always been. Clearly, Theon forgot what the Iron Irons are about. He went back thinking, oh, look at all my fancy shit, and I'm going to demand all this stuff, and we're going to get all this stuff, forgetting that the Iron Irons take what they want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you're shitty, so you take the shitty stuff that you can get, because Robb Stark will beat your ass.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, he's dead now, but... Or not. I said Robb. Did I say Robb?
Yeah, you said
Ned.
Robb. You meant Ned.
Ned.
So is Yara and Balon are walking out the door. Theon says, you won't stand a chance against the Lannisters on your own. And that's when Balon says, who said anything about the Lannisters?
Exactly.
Which means, well, we all know what that means, but
yeah.
So then we excuse me, we cut to Davos and Salador. Who's a pirate. They're in Davos' son, who is Maester, or learning to be Maester, I believe. I guess he's not really Maester.
He is?
He has the stuff, right?
Oh,
Does
I
he have the
don't
chain?
remember that. He has a sword.
I thought he started having the chain. Maybe I'm missing that. But I guess they wouldn't have
he
a
said he'd
Maester
be a
at
knight
this
one
point.
day.
Okay. Well, but they don't. But the Lord of Light doesn't. Maester is for the Seven. I'm saying he's counseling as Maester. I'm not saying he's the Maester.
Okay, sure.
Anyway, whatever. He's counseling.
But he
clearly.
mentions him being a knight later.
Yeah. Well, he becomes Stannis' squire. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
Go ahead.
They're there. They're talking. Davos says, Salador says, why would I bid on the man with the worst chance? Because he has the smaller army.
Yeah.
And he's not the king currently. He's not the king at King's Landing. And Davos says, because Stannis is the only aged man, he's the only one who's seen war. You know, these are boys. I mean, Robb has some under his foot, but I mean, Stannis is a grown man who's been through the rebellion.
Yeah.
So
he's got grit.
Yeah, he's definitely. And so, that's when Salador says, well, I'm a pirate. I'm an excellent pirate, but I don't sail for promises. And Davos says, and then he says, most pirates don't grow old, only the clever ones do. And Davos says, what I'm offering, he said, well, yeah, you could go and do the easy thing, which is what you've done all this time. And
yeah, get a little bit of gold here, a little there.
And he says, what I'm offering you is hard. Come with me and plunder the greatest city in Westeros. And, men will sing your name. And Salador goes, well, Salador's Hand is a good name for song.
For sure.
And he goes, all right, well, one thing I want is the queen.
Oh, he wants to quote, fuck her.
Yeah. And so he says, I'll give you all 30 of my ships. We'll sail with you. And if we win, I will fuck that queen. And that's when Davos' son says, you can't, we're not going to let you rape the queen. And he's like, I'm not going to rape her. I'm going to fuck her. And he goes, well, what if she doesn't let you? And he's like, you don't know how persuasive I am. I've never tried to fuck you.
Exactly.
Yeah, which then makes Davos' son very uncomfortable.
Yeah, here, welcome to the real world,
yeah,
Junior.
which is when I was like, I love Salladhor.
And also, it's like, yeah, try to, like, bring up this proper bullshit with a bunch of pirates.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, A, they don't give a fuck. B, they've been all over the world. They've heard all kinds of shit. So they're going to be able to school you in any direction that you take this thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when and then Davos starts talking about the Lord of Light and he's the one true God. And Salladhor says just what you said. He says, I've been all over the world. Everywhere I go, some man says he's found the one true God. And he's like, I'm telling you what the one true God is. It's between a woman's legs. And a queen's
Booyah!
is even better. And so, so then he turns back to Davos and he says,
man.
yeah, he is. He turns back to Davos and he goes, why do you trust Stannis? And he said, and then Davos goes, he's the one true king. And, of course, making a play on what Davos just said. And Salladhor just said. And then Salladhor says, a man chops off your fingers and for some reason you still fight for him. And he says, you're the most honest smuggler I've ever met. Make me rich. And Davos says, if you help us, and in God's will, I will.
For sure.
Yeah. And so Salladhor leaves. Davos' son, they were walking back, and he says, he starts trying to convince Davos to start reading and getting into the Lord of Light, and he's like, this is your God, and, you need to learn, and Davos says, look, I've never done that, and he's like, look, I've been on many excursions, and I've never prayed, and I've always come home, and he's like, well, you might not have prayed, but I always did, and, that's when Davos says, fine, you want me to have a god? King Stannis. He's my god. And
he's like, he's a man.
Yeah, he says he's a man. And that's when Davos says, don't tell him that. So we cut to Cersei. She's mad, of course, because Tyrion sent Janos away.
Oh, no.
She says that you have no right, which is like Cersei's favorite line in the world.
Exactly.
And Cersei and Tyrion says, we're losing the people because of his actions and the stuff that you're ordering. And Cersei's like, you think I care? They could starve. And he was like, it's hard to rule over millions if they hate you.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like the reason you are what you are is because you're ruling over.
Mm-hmm. But she's forgotten that.
The thing.
Yeah.
It's like if they all want you dead, you will die.
Yeah.
You can't stop a million people coming to kill you.
No. And he says, he was like, do you think people will still worship you and want to let you rule when they think a queen slaughters babies? And she doesn't say anything. And he's like, you don't even have the decency to deny it. And she's like kind of pacing back and forth, and that's when
he kind of picks up on the fact that, oh, you didn't do that.
Yeah, and he's like, so Joffrey didn't tell you. And she was like,
it needed to be done.
Yeah, and he said, it needed to be done, and she said, this is what ruling is. It's lying on a bed of weeds and ripping them out one by one before they strangle you to death. And it's like, that's not like, ruling at all.
Yeah, he's a little more to ruling than that.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah, and then that's when Cersei says, none of you have, no one's ever taken this seriously. It's always fallen on me.
Yeah, you and Jaime haven't taken this shit seriously.
Mm-hmm. And that's when Tyrion went with the, let me dig this in a little further, and he goes, as has Jaime, according to Stannis.
Uh-oh.
And then she says, you're funny. You've always been funny. But she says, but none of your jokes will ever match the first one. You remember when you ripped my mother open and she bled to death? And that's when Tyrion says, she was my mother too.
Yeah, and this makes no sense. You don't even fucking remember your mother. Yeah. How much older can she be than Tyrion?
She's not that much older.
3, 4 years,
well, she would have
maybe?
been
So you
Oh,
maybe...
no. She's, well, in the book, she's a lot older. But
yeah, but in the show?
she's like probably 5 years older.
Okay. 5,
6 maybe.
Okay. So you remember what she looked like?
It might be a little more, but
Kinda.
Yeah.
If she was 5. Well, in the show, she's not that much older than
No,
him.
it's just Cersei has always hated Tyrion.
Yeah, but it's like you're saying this. You took her from. It's like you don't remember her.
Yeah.
You were too little.
Yeah, exactly.
You just don't.
Yeah,
You
it's someone
just
who
don't.
lost a
Oh,
parent at
exactly.
5.
I'm talking to someone.
And I'm 31.
How well do you remember her?
Not very well.
It's
I
probably
remember the last 6 months of her life pretty clearly because that was, 1, traumatic, and 2, the oldest I was
But
with
it's
her.
pretty fuzzy.
Everything else is fuzzy.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah, it's been 26 years.
A little while.
Yeah, so that
I
shouldn't be
hate-
about the time Cersei. And I have
Exactly.
pictures and I have videos, and Cersei doesn't have any of
Well,
that, and I still don't remember that stuff.
I just hate that shit that she like tries to drive that home that you killed my mom. It's like you fucking you barely knew your mom.
Yeah.
And come on.
It's a terrible.
It's not like you had, you that Tyrion came in when she was 15 at these
Yeah.
times when she really needed her mother.
and he stabbed her.
exactly.
or something.
You're still shitting yourself.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Take a lap.
Take a lap.
Uh,
Terrible.
So, so Cersei leaves after saying that no bigger joke in the world than that. So,
Oh, real good
yeah,
one.
Yeah, good.
Boo.
Yeah, good insult, Cersei. So we cut to the Dragonstone war room. Davos, he's in there with his son. They're setting up, all their ships and stuff on the map. And Davos enters with Melisandre, and he tells him that the pirates will join. And Stannis asks, "Do you trust him?" And Davos says, "Well, he's an old friend. I've never trusted him, but once he gets the smell of gold, he never stops." And Stannis, he's like, "Well, that's fine. He can have his cut as long as he does what he needs to."
Yeah.
So then he tells Davos and his son to leave him and Melisandre.
Because she keeps giving. She is dick hungry, dude.
Yeah. She's given those fuck me eyes.
For
hard.
Sure.
Yeah. It looks like she even her hair is so full.
I mean, the face she's.
Well, it's clear that if you believe, she
Thirsty.
is magical.
That girl
clearly.
thirsty.
So it's clear she's seducing him, and
and it's working.
Yeah.
Because she is fine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So she stops Davos' son as they're walking out, and she says, "The Lord of Light shows through you," and then she whispers something in his ear. They leave. Stannis asks, "What did you say to him?" And she says, "Death by fire is the purest death." And he's like, "Why would you say that?"
What a horribly awful, what a fucking terrible thing to say to someone on the way out, just casually.
Quite foreshadowing, possibly, someone's death.
This is a great way to die, by the way.
Yeah.
You have a great night.
Have a perfect. It's just a little FYI for you. So Davos, he's like, "Why would you say that?" And she's like, "'Cause it's the truth." And then she goes, "You're troubled, my king." And he's like,
Well,
look what's going on.
I got no guys.
Yeah. And she's like, "Your army, these other armies are nothing but toys for the Lord of Light." And he was like, "Well, tell him to do something." And she's like, "I tell him nothing. I listen to his commands and I obey." And she's like, "You must have faith." And Stannis says, "Well, in a real war, the side typically goes with the greater number."
9 out of 10 times.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, "Well, we have to be the 10.
And he's like, what?
And he's like, "I can't defeat Renly. It's too big of an army. And I can't attack King's Landing because it just can't be done at this moment."
Yeah, with the numbers.
Yeah,
And
it just won't work. And she's like, you have to give yourself to the Lord of Light. And he's like, "I've said the words, I've burnt the idols." And she's like, "You must give all of yourself."
Yeah,
and
I'm
that's when
talking about that dick.
Yeah. And then she pops out a titty.
Yeah. Well, she pops the whole frontage out.
Yeah, that's true.
Here's the goods.
Yeah.
And they're good.
And they're real good. Those are solid.
Solid
boobies.
rack on
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
Beautiful body.
Yeah. For a woman that
Hashtag beautiful body.
beautiful babies. I'm pretty sure that the actress is in her mid 40s. I hope to God to look like that when I'm in my mid 40s.
Yeah, I hope I have tits like that when I'm in my 40s
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I can only hope that one day they'll look like that. On you, not me. So she says, yeah, like, you need to put it in me. And he's like, I have a wife. I took a vow. And she's like, doesn't matter.
And she just like turns the fuck me eyes up to 12.
Yeah, and she's like, your wife's sick. She's weak. She's locked in a tower, and she disgusts you.
And that body is no good.
Yeah, and she's giving you nothing, no sons, only stillborns and death.
And I'm giving you full frontal.
And she says, I'll give you a king. Or I'll give you a son, my king. And yeah, so he's like, she's like full frontal.
As soon
and
as he
he's
hears
like,
the son thing, he's like,
yeah,
right on.
Yeah, so he...
And then somehow he's immediately smashing her, even though it would take him at least 35 minutes to get out of his gear.
Yeah.
I don't understand how they get their dicks out so fast.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't.
You're like sewn up.
Yeah, I don't.
With 9 fucking layers.
It's way too... It's just... That is the most unbelievable thing in this episode.
For sure.
Also,
For sure.
Stannis also doesn't look like he's that good at sex.
I think that was it seemed like he gives 3 pumps and it seems like the third one like sent it.
Yeah, but it also
scene.
seems like, I mean, we know Stannis is a pent up, stressed out
guy.
guy.
Stannis isn't
and he also isn't having sex, so it does make sense.
If you look at that guy, you don't look at him and go, that guy fucks.
Yeah, that guy fucks.
That guy doesn't fuck.
No,
that guy's stressed. He just kills people. He's good at that, and
he's as honorable as Ned Stark.
When he gets complete fire department redheads in his spot wanting to smash him, he blows it. Yeah. 3 pump chump.
Well, she stays.
That's your king, folks.
She's all about it, so it's okay.
He's a buster.
Yeah.
But I like the actor.
I do too.
He's in the greatest game ever played.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that.
He plays Arry.
So we cut to Jon. He's sitting outside of Craster's Keep at night. No one's around. He's just kind of by himself. And he sees Craster leaving. He's cradling a baby in his arms.
Yeah. A boy.
A boy? Yeah. So Jon follows, obviously, because he's like, I gotta find out where these boys go.
Well, and also, he's the one person there that's been questioning that.
Yeah, exactly. So Craster walks away from the keep down into the woods. As Jon's walking through the woods, we hear like icy sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, like some really, the normal like creaks and cracks in the woods that you would hear, but then there's like,
Someone
like icicles and stuff.
Definitely out there making snow cones.
Yeah. Absolutely. I hope they're grape.
For sure.
So Jon like is kind of like looking around, and then he steps back real quick and hides behind a tree because he sees Craster coming. Doesn't hide really well. Craster could have saw him in seconds.
Probably seeing half his shoulder and his whole sword.
It's definitely not a very big tree. Jon is wearing all black and has a bright silver sword like out.
I don't think
it
it's
doesn't
out.
have it out yet. Yeah, but even the holder.
Either way,
yeah, you can see it.
Terrible at hiding.
Definitely
not his strong point.
No, not. He would not play hide and seek very well. So Craster walks away. That's when Jon hears the baby cry, more icicle-y noises.
And he starts to get closer. Then he whips the sword out.
Yeah, and he starts kind of like running and twirling through the woods, just checking his surroundings. And he finally sees the baby. Something picks it up. Again, icicle-y sounds. And
then it turns back and gives him the blue thriller eyes.
Yeah, and that's when we see someone grab Jon.
Or Jon hears something.
Yeah.
He turns.
We see Craster grab him and then clock him.
Club his ass.
Yeah, and that's the end of the episode.
Night, roll credits.
Yeesh.
Season 2, episode 2.
Woo!
Done and done.
Yeah.
Shit.
I can finally woot again because I'm almost over this cold.
Almost all the way unsick.
Yeah. So season 2, episode 2.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm excited to keep going.
We're getting into of course we're getting into the good stuff, but definitely getting into really fun material.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I like doing this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I am a little bummed that we can't just watch the shit out of the show because I'd probably be watching at least 3 episodes after work every day.
Yeah.
If we weren't doing this.
Yeah, if we were just watching the show, we would be probably season 4 or 5 by now.
Damn straight.
Yeah, but
yeah, we'd be crushing this.
Yeah, but
Yeah, whatever.
This is fun.
It is fun. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find us on
Twitter
and Instagram.
Instagram, both of them, Throne Thugs Podcast.
Yeah, we're terrible at the marketing thing and putting our Instagrams and shit out there. So
I mean, I'm active on it. I just forget to tell people.
Yeah, so
we just try not to make the shows about us, but like that's something that. I want your interaction. I want to hear you guys talk about the episode and what parts did you like and what are your theories. That's what I really like. Also, the email address if you'd like to say if you have any theories or would like to discuss theories.
Oh yeah. If we said something and you're like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know. What about this?
Or if you're confused. If you have questions,
or if I said that character sucks dicks and you're like, that's my favorite character, bring it on. I want to know why it's your favorite character.
Daniel wants to argue.
I
want to discuss.
I don't want to argue.
I
just find it interesting when people like shitty characters.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I saw this thing on Reddit today that was like all of these characters that have character development, and at the bottom it was like Sansa season 1 annoying, Sansa season 7 older, slightly less annoying.
How long do I have to wait?
How long? So anyway, the email address is thronethugs@gmail.com. It's the only thing not with podcast on it, so sorry.
Yeah, just Throne Thugs.
Yeah, so but it's if you go to Instagram or Twitter, it's on there. You can just click it and email. I've guided people through the show before who have had questions or forget who people are. So like I like doing that kind
Holly's
of stuff.
like if you were taking ayahuasca, she's gonna be your spirit guide through this GOT process.
I'll be your GOT spirit guide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway,
also listen to our other podcasts if you want to. Murd Up. True crime. Holly tells me murder stories.
Yep.
It's pretty much sounds exactly like this show, but except with that.
Except I do a little bit more talking, and Daniel is more like,
holy shit!
He did what?
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Just a lot of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys at the next one.
Hopefully it'll come out soon.
Yeah, hopefully it'll come out soon. Sorry.
Sorry.
All the holidays and sicknesses and
skate trips
and jobs and blah, blah. We're trying to put this shit out.
Yeah, so we'll get there.
I don't have confidence in us finishing it before the new season comes out, but what we will do, like I was telling Holly, if we're in season 4 or 5 or whatever by the time it comes out, we're still gonna do episodes for those new ones, and then we'll so we're up to date,
and then we'll
just come
finish
back.
the catalog.
We'll come back and we'll keep cataloging old episodes.
Yeah.
So the hope is to have it done because that would be ideal. But if not, I think we still want to finish this out just to have it all recorded and have the whole thing, on file.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll get it there.
Till next time.
Yeah. Bye.
See ya.